I'm Sylvia and I'm a senior at Orono High School, and today I'm going to talk about playing the saxophone and how you should start out playing your saxophone. So, first we have to assemble our saxophone. You have a neck strap, so put that on right now. And here's the main piece, so you're just going to clip that in right here. And then this is like the mouthpiece. And you can see it's got a cork up here, so you're gonna just screw this in. And we have, this is called cork grease, and it comes in a little chapstick-like container. And you're just gonna take a little bit of that and put it on. And that just makes sure that everything can slide on really easily, and that it protects the cork from getting all worn out. And this is your mouthpiece, and it has this little metal thing on it. And you're gonna just shimmy that right onto the cork. Okay. So, now you have your saxophone together, it's time to get your reed on. So, before you get your reed on, you're just gonna need to take a moment and kind of get your spit all up in the reed and get it pretty soft and warmed up, and so it's ready for you to play. Then what you're gonna do is put it onto your mouthpiece like this, and you're gonna line it up. And what you want is to line it up, so I'll bring this in closer to the camera and take it off for a second. You want it so you can just, when you bring it in, you can see just a little bit of, excuse my dirty mouthpiece, you can choose just a little bit of the reed over the top of your mouthpiece. That's going to be the easiest way for you to play. So now you have an assembled saxophone. Some things you should know is that there's different types of reeds for different types of players. So when you start out, you're going to use a softer reed. It's just going to be easier to play. But when you start taking more lessons, you're going to use a harder reed because it's going to make a nicer sound eventually. So right now I'd recommend starting out with like a 2 or a 2.5 reed just to get started and figure out what you're doing. Also, another good thing to know is that there's different types of saxophones. So whatever saxophone you have in your hands is probably the one you're going to be playing right now. And most people start out with the alto saxophone. It's just kind of the concert band, what's used mostly in concert bands. And then the other saxophones are a tenor saxophone, which is bigger and has a lower sound, and then an even lower sounding bari saxophone. And there's also a soprano saxophone that looks a little like a clarinet, and that has a higher sound than the alto saxophone. But most people are going to start out playing the alto just because it's easy to learn and has a good sound for the concert band. And in addition, this saxophone, like yours probably, is more of a beginner saxophone. And what it means by that is that you can, the more expensive saxophone versions have a special key right here. And you can see I don't have it, but it just makes a higher sound that you really don't need. So that's that. So now that we know a little bit about our saxophone, we can get ready to make our first sound. So something that's important to remember is your embouchure, this like your mouth, how it's placed. And so you want to have a pretty tight embouchure. And when you are putting your mouth around your mouthpiece, you need to put your teeth down on top of the saxophone. So don't curl your lip under, bite down on the saxophone, and then keep this lower lip pretty tight. So you should look something kind of like this. Kind of like a tight smile. And then in addition, there's different ways you can hold your saxophone. So some people prefer to play with their saxophone to the side, and some people prefer to play it like this. I prefer to play with the saxophone in between my legs because you want to keep a good angle between your mouth and the saxophone so you're more like this, as opposed to keeping it back and then your head's more down. That will make it easier to tongue, which is something we'll talk about later. So yeah, so that's that's the first kind of thing you need to know about the mouth. Now moving on. So we need to put our hands on the saxophone, obviously. So your left hand is going to go on the second key, and then your next finger is going to go on the third key, and then your ring finger is going to go on this key. So your fingers are set up like that. And then your thumb is going to be resting on this pad in the back, right here. And this key is the octave key, which will bring your saxophone up 1 octave, or whatever note you're playing. Then for your right hand, your pointer finger is going to go here, your middle finger is going to go here, and your ring finger is going to go here, and then there's a place for your thumb to rest right underneath. So it's a pretty natural hand position, and you might think it's weird that you're not pressing these keys right away, but it will become natural as time goes on, and the easiest way to play your saxophone. So when we're starting to look at notes and learn to play saxophone, something you should know is that the saxophone's in the treble clef, so it just means that's the notes you're going to have to learn how to read in the treble clef. So you're going to have to know, for example, that on the treble clef, what notes are on a line versus what notes are in a space, in the bar. So that's something you're going to kind of want to think about. And we're not going to go over a lot of the notes in this certain video, but something you can do is look in any of a beginning book is going to have a thing called a fingering chart, and they're going to black out the fingers you have to press down in order to make a certain note. And so what I would recommend is practicing making certain notes, and your beginning books will focus a lot on five notes usually. So the first one is G, and that's just putting these 3 down, your 3 top fingers. A is going to just be putting your 2 fingers down, and B is just going to be your first finger. So those are 3 notes you can kind of learn. You can play hot cross buns, so let's see if I can make a sound. That is a G, and that's kind of a bass note, and that's for the B flat concert scale. That's what us saxophones play, so when you're warming up in a band, it's likely you'll play a G. And so then if you use your octave key like I showed you before, then that will bring it up. So I'll show you that too. So there's a little taste of the sound that you're going to make with your saxophone. Also, I want to just tell you that there's going to be another video on notes and rhythms that will discuss more of when you're getting to the real music and starting to play songs, how you're going to go about that. Okay, so next we need to look at our posture. So it's really important if we're going to make a good sound that we're sitting up really straight. And something that will just help is if you focus on keeping your shoulders down and back. And the reason that posture is important is so you can breathe. So a lot of people make the mistake of kind of breathing from their chest when they start playing, but you really want to focus on breathing from your belly. And if you're breathing properly, when you are blowing in or out, you should be getting kind of fatter. And so I just right now, if you're playing along, just take a few breaths and really try to get in through your stomach, your mouth. So and I would breathe in a shape that looks kind of like a whoa or a whoo, kind of like that. So when you're breathing, depending on when you're playing, a breath can make the difference between a sound that's kind of or a sound that's really strong. So you want that strong sound, and that's going to make a lot of difference in the tone quality of your work and your music. So that's really, really important. And something you can do to get better is just breathing in eighth notes and quarter notes, and then breathing out for just a count. So you can start with a whole note, breathing in for 1, 2, 3, 4, and breathing out for 2, 4, and for 4, and then go into half notes and quarter notes and eighth notes for measure. So that will really help your sound. Okay, so we're going to talk about one of the things that's been most challenging for me in my saxophone career, shall we say, and that's tonguing. So tonguing is really important for the saxophone because we have a reed as you can see. And so tonguing is when you like move your tongue in order to distinguish between notes. And so like if you're playing from a G to an A, that kind of is a smooth transition, but once you get more advanced into your music, you're going to want to distinguish in between those notes, so you're going to have to use your tongue. And what's really important when you're starting out is to develop good habits with your tongue. And something that's been really hard for me is when you tongue, you need to use this part of your tongue. A lot of common mistake is putting in your mouth too far into the saxophone, so then you get too much tongue. And that's going to make it really hard to get a precise sound, and that's going to make it really hard to tongue quickly once you're going fast. So what I like to do is you need to tighten up your neck strap a little to make sure your saxophone is going in at a straight angle as opposed to like this. So if you put in your saxophone at a better angle, that means your tongue is only going to touch here, where you only want it to touch. So a little tonguing is going to sound like, going to go from to. So what you're going to want to practice for that is an exercise where you start out with a whole note, and you tongue a whole note of the same note. I'd start on a G, because that's something we've worked on. And then you go half notes and quarter notes, half note, whole note, half note, quarter note, eighth note. And to start to make sure your tongue is sharp, I would start out with that and your scales to start every practice. Another thing that's really important, and we've talked a lot about our air and blowing fast air, but it's another thing to remember that if you want a lighter, softer sound, a piano sound, you're going to want to blow slower air, as opposed to if you want a louder sound, you're going to want to blow faster air. The really tough thing is you still want to have that air support coming from your stomach, and you still want to be like getting that full belly sound, but just in a softer mode. So something like a forte would sound like, whereas a piano would sound more like. And so that's just to distinguish, nothing else is changing. My embouchure should not be changing. My posture should not be changing, just the speed of the air. And so that's something to be really careful with. So before you play, what I really just want you to make sure is that you have a positive attitude and you're thinking about all the things that we've kind of gone over. So I'd look at first your posture. Are your feet flat on the floor? Is your back straight and your shoulders up? Your stomach is ready and your ribs are ready to be opened, and so you can get that full sound. And once you have that, I'd like you to kind of experiment. Do you like this between your legs, or do you like this? And if you like this, make sure you're playing with your saxophone forward to eliminate tonguing with the middle of your tongue. Next, think about those deep breaths and make sound. Something that I like to do too, is to blow. Just focus on blowing for the first, maybe just like the first time you play. Just blow with your mouthpiece. That's a really unpleasant sound, but it will teach you about keeping your teeth down and your embouchure tight. And just getting a feel for what it feels to kind of go like this. And it's okay to have a double chin. Remember that, because it's probably gonna happen. And you'll be okay. Just be really confident in your sound and play out. Like, if you don't know what to do, that's okay. It's fine to make mistakes when you're starting. Just focus on your breathing a lot, and if you focus on your breathing and your tonguing from the start, the notes and rhythms will come, but that will just be so important to help you be the best player you can be. Something I'd like to talk about before you go practice on your own is cleaning your saxophone. So For saxophones, they're pretty easy to clean. After you practice, just take off this part. And there's a string, and you're just gonna feed it through, and that will clean your saxophone, and it has a little pad on the end, and you're gonna feed it through, turn your saxophone up, and grab the string like that. Now, what I have instead of that is this nifty feather thing. And so what you're gonna do, just to keep your saxophone clean, and this is something I use every day, is you're just gonna pop this right in to your saxophone. And you can buy this at any music store, or maybe it will come with your saxophone. But that just makes sure that your keys aren't getting crushed. And another important thing is that when you store your saxophone, never put books or papers over it in the case, because that can ruin your keys and keep them sticky. So yeah, I think that's all. The saxophone is a really amazing instrument, and I hope this video helped you to learn a little bit about starting it. I hope you really enjoy playing it. Thank you so much for watching.